Do you remember the moment they broke you? Not the one they saw, the one you buried, the one you wrapped in silence and shoved into the back room of your soul, hoping time would forget. But time doesn't forget. Time watches, time remembers. And every so often it whispers that moment back into your ears like a ghost with unfinished business. You hear it in the quiet. You feel it in the stillness between heartbeats. That second when the world, your world, stopped turning and something inside you cracked. Not loudly, number quietly, so quiet that no one noticed. But you did. You noticed everything. They didn't just hurt you. They dismantled you piece by piece, with a smile on their face and your trust in their hand. And when the damage was done, they walked away like nothing happened. Like your pain was disposable. Like you were disposable. Do you remember standing there, trying to gather the pieces they left behind? Hands trembling, breath shallow, soul screaming, but lips sealed shut. You wanted to cry, but tears betrayed you. You wanted to scream, but the silence was louder. And so you just stood there, frozen, forgotten, alone. But you weren't alone. You were surrounded by voices telling you to get over it, to move on, to be strong, as if strength means silence, as if healing means pretending it didn't happen, as if survival is shameful. You learned quickly, didn't you? You learned how to wear a mask, how to smile with dead eyes, how to laugh without joy. You became an actor in your own life, faking peace, faking normal, faking okay. And they applauded you for it. They called you brave. They didn't see that every step forward was a war. Every morning was a battle. Every breath a quiet rebellion. You wanted someone to see it. You wanted someone to look past the facade and say, I see you. I see your pain. I see your fight. But they didn't. They never do. They only see the surface. They only care when you break in ways that inconvenience them. But your pain was private, elegant in its invisibility, and so they missed it, all of it. The nights you lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if it was always going to hurt like this. The days where even your shadow felt heavy. The moments where the weight of breathing felt unbearable. And yet, you kept breathing. That's the part they never understand. That despite everything, despite the betrayal, the silence, the cold, you kept going. You moved through the fire. You dragged yourself through the ashes. And even when your bones screamed for rest, you stood. Maybe not tall, maybe not proud, but you stood. And that matters more than they'll ever know. Because pain doesn't make you weak. It makes you real. And you, my friend, are real in a world full of fakes. You bleed where others hide. You feel where others numb. You carry weight most wouldn't even touch. That doesn't make you broken. That makes you rare, dangerous, untouchable. But let's not lie to ourselves. This isn't a fairy tale. This isn't the part where the hero rises in a blaze of glory. Not yet. This is the part where the hero is face down in the dirt, bleeding and breathless, asking the universe why it hurts so damn much. This is the part where hope is a whisper, not a roar. Where faith is a flicker, not a fire. Where strength looks like showing up, just showing up. When everything inside you begs you to disappear. And still, you're here. You've been lied to. Told that your worth is measured by how untouched you are. That the less you've suffered, the more whole you must be. That's a myth. A sick, twisted lie to keep people quiet. But the truth is written in your scar. The truth is carved into your resilience. You've been hurt, yes, deeply, brutally, unfairly. But every time they tried to end you, you became something else, something stronger, something colder, something unstoppable. They thought they were breaking you, but they were building something they couldn't control. And now you're starting to feel it, aren't you? That shift, that low hum under your skin, that pulse that says, there's more in me. It's not loud yet. It's not a roar, but it's there, buried beneath the rubble, waiting, watching, growing. They don't see it. They think you're still down, still broken, still the same. But what's coming? What's waking inside you? It's not the old you. It's not the one who begged, the one who waited, the one who needed them to see you. Number, that one's gone. What remains is forged, not born, forged in fire, betrayal, and silence. They tried to hurt you, and they did. Let's not pretend otherwise. Let's not romanticize the suffering. They scarred you. They stole pieces of you. They turned your world inside out and left you to clean up the mess. But here's the truth they'll never admit. They didn't finish the job. They thought they ended you, but they only woke something they can't kill. So breathe deeply. Let it burn if it needs to. Let it ache. Let it sting. That pain you feel, it's not weakness. It's not failure. It's the sound of the old self dying and something far more dangerous being born. They broke you, and now you're becoming untouchable. You were just a child, weren't you? But they didn't care. You were soft then, open, trusting. You hadn't learned yet that this world will take innocence and turn it into a weapon against you. You hadn't learned that sometimes. The monsters don't hide under your bed. They sit across from you at dinner. They smile at you in the hallway. They hug you while planting knives in your back. You believed with all your heart that love meant safety, that family meant protection, that friends were forever. But life had other plans. It started with a whisper, one you couldn't quite hear, but you felt it. A shift in the air, a look that lasted too long, a coldness in their voice that made your stomach twist. The warmth was gone, the light was gone, and suddenly you weren't held. You were judged, mocked, dismissed, left out, left behind, forgotten, and it hurt. God, it hurt in ways you didn't have words for. They laughed at you, didn't they? Maybe it was the way you dressed, the way you spoke, the way you cared too much, too deeply, too loudly. They made you feel like loving was wrong, like dreaming was foolish, like existing was a burden. And slowly, day by day, you started to shrink. Not in body, but in spirit. You quieted your voice. You second-guessed your every thought. You changed yourself just to be accepted, only to be rejected again. It was never enough. You were never enough, or so they made you believe. Rejection became routine. You'd reach out only to be met with silence. You'd open up only to be mocked. The ones you trusted the most were the ones who caused the deepest wound. They used your heart as a plaything, your fears as punchlines, your hopes as leverage. And the worst part? They did it without remorse, without hesitation, without care. You cried into pillows soaked with shame. You stared at your reflection and wondered what was so wrong with you that even the people who claimed to love you didn't. You screamed into the void, begging for someone, anyone, to see you, to save you, to tell you that you mattered. But no one came, so you stopped asking. You stopped crying. You stopped reaching. You stopped hoping. You folded inward, curled into yourself like a dying flame. And that's when the world turned cold. That's when the numbness set in, the great silence, the heavy nothing. You stopped feeling the sting, not because the pain disappeared, but because it became constant, background noise, a second skin. People looked at you and called you strong, but you weren't strong. You were surviving. You were clenching your jaw through every betrayal, smiling through every humiliation, laughing through every heartbreak. You became an expert in pretending, a master of masks, and beneath it all, you were crumbling. They told you that time healed, but they lied. Time doesn't heal, it hardened, and with each passing day you grew colder, not by choice, not by desire, but by necessity. You had to be cold to survive the heat of their cruelty. You had to shut down to keep from burning up, and so you descended, slowly, quietly, into a version of yourself even you didn't recognize. The vibrant soul became a whisper. The fire became a flicker. The laughter became hollow. You walked through life like a ghost, haunted by memories that wouldn't let you rest. Everything reminded you of what you'd lost, of what they took, of what they destroyed, and yet you kept showing up, at school, at work, in relationships. On the outside, you were functioning, but inside, you were lost in a snowstorm of your own making. You couldn't tell anyone what you were feeling, because you didn't know how. You didn't even know what you were feeling. You were numb, frozen, waiting for something, anything, to bring you back to life. But the world didn't care. It kept spinning. It kept demanding. And you kept giving until there was nothing left to give. You stopped trusting, not just people, but yourself, your judgment, your worth, your ability to tell what was real and what was just manipulation dressed in kindness. Everyone became a threat. Every smile hit a blade. Every compliment was bait. And so you built walls, not to keep others out, but to keep yourself from falling any deeper. You locked the doors, sealed the windows, covered the mirror. You didn't want to see yourself anymore. You didn't want to remember who you used to be, because that person, the soft one, the hopeful one, the loving one, was the one they broke. So you killed them. At least that's what you told yourself. But the truth is, that version of you never really died. They just went quiet, hiding in the shadows, waiting for you to be ready, waiting for you to remember that being crushed isn't the end. It's the beginning, that from the deepest pain comes the deepest power. But you didn't know that yet. All you knew was the cold, the silence, the ache. All you knew was that something precious inside you had been shattered, and no one seemed to care. But I care, because I see you. Not the version you show the world, but the real you. The one who's been through hell and somehow still breathes. The one who was betrayed, abandoned, torn down, and still stands. Maybe trembling, maybe tired, but standing. And I'm telling you this now, not to reopen wounds, but to remind you, you weren't weak for falling. You weren't foolish for trusting. You weren't wrong for loving. They were wrong for breaking something that was never theirs to destroy. And you are not broken. You are becoming. You laughed in public, but your soul was bleeding behind closed doors. You became a master of disguise. The smile was your armor, the laughter your camouflage. You wore joy like a mask stitched from desperation, hoping no one would notice the tremble in your hands or the flicker in your eyes. You learned how to say, "I'm fine," so convincingly that even you started to believe it for a moment, for a second, until the quiet came again, until the crowd disappeared, until the doors shut and the lights dimmed, and it was just you and the silence. That's when the screaming began, not the kind the world can hear, not the loud, dramatic wails that draw attention. Number your screams were silent, suffocating, the kind that shatter from the inside out, the kind that echo in your chest, bounce off your bone, and dissolve into nothing. You screamed, but the walls just absorbed it. You cried, but the night offered no comfort. You gasped for breath under the weight of your own mind, and not a single soul noticed. You were drowning, and they called it swimming. You were fighting for your life behind the calm of your face, and they called it strength. But no one saw it. No one saw the panic attacks you hid in the bathroom, the tears you wiped before anyone could knock, the anxiety that sat on your chest like a stone, pressing down on every dream you dared to hold. You moved through life like a shadow, present but fading, engaged but absent, alive but aching. And the worst part? You blamed yourself. You thought maybe you were too sensitive, too dramatic, too much. You told yourself to stop feeling, to toughen up, to grow thicker skin. You swallowed your emotions like poison, hoping they'd stay down this time. But they didn't. They never do. They found their way back, into your thoughts, into your sleep, into your bone. The pain became a part of you, stitched into your skin like a second self. You wore it well. They said you were strong. They said you were resilient, but they didn't know the cost. They didn't see the nights you laid on the floor, arms wrapped around your ribs like you were trying to hold yourself together. They didn't hear the voices in your head whispering all the reasons you weren't enough. They didn't feel the weight of pretending, of performing, of hiding the darkness that clung to you like smoke. You didn't want attention. You wanted relief. You didn't want sympathy. You wanted silence, not the kind that isolates, but the kind that heals, the kind that holds you, the kind that says, "You don't have to explain. I understand." But that silence never came. Instead, you were surrounded by noise, demands, expectations, pressure. They told you to keep going, to push through, to just think positive, as if thoughts could erase trauma, as if mantras could mend broken hearts. You nodded, you smiled, and you sank deeper into the void. There were days you couldn't feel anything, not sadness, not anger, not hope, just nothing. A numbness that felt worse than pain, because pain meant you were still alive. But numbness? Numbness meant you were disappearing, and still you showed up. You got out of bed when every fiber in your body told you to stay down. You went to work, to school, to dinner, to parties. You laughed when it was expected. You gave when you had nothing left. You held space for others while no one held space for you. You became everything for everyone and no one for yourself. And yet, somehow, you kept breathing. That's the part no one talks about. The heroism in survival, the strength in the silence, the courage it takes to wake up and try again when everything inside you begs for escape. You didn't need someone to fix you. You just needed someone to see you, to say, I know you're hurting and I'm not going anywhere. But no one came, so you became your own sanctuary. You stitched together pieces of your shattered self with threads of sheer will. You built a shelter out of pain and called it home. You learned to walk with wounds no one could see. You learned to smile through the tears. You learned that even when the world is blind to your suffering is real, and it matters because you matter, even when they don't see you, even when they overlook you, even when they praise the mask and ignore the truth. You matter. Your pain matters. Your story matters. And one day, that silent scream will become a battle cry. But for now, you keep breathing. You inhale the ache. You exhale the lie. You move, even if it's slow, even if it's messy, even if every step feels like a betrayal of the part of you that wants to quit. You keep breathing, not because it's easy, not because it doesn't hurt, but because somewhere deep inside you, beneath the numbness, beneath the exhaustion, beneath the quiet rage, there's a spark that says, not yet, not today, not like this. They didn't hear your screams, they didn't see your tears, but they'll see what you become. Because even silent pain can be power if you survive it long enough. They tried to bury you, spit on your soul, crush your spirit under the weight of their lies, their mockery, their indifference, but they didn't know you were soil, and all they did was plant a seed. Let's speak their names, not literally, no, but let's call out the masks they wore, the faces behind the hurt, the shadows that slithered into your life with sweet words and venom tongue. You remember them, you always will. They are the reason you stopped trusting, the reason you flinch at kindness, the reason your walls are so high, even sunlight has to beg to reach you. They played their roles well, didn't they? Let's meet them again. Let's not look away this time. The betrayer. They came close first, so close. They knew your secrets. They knew your fears. They held the most delicate parts of you in their hand and crushed them without mercy. Maybe it was a friend. Maybe it was family. Maybe it was someone you gave your heart to with no reservation. You trusted them, not blindly, but fully. And in return, they turned on you, sold your truth for gossip, used your pain as leverage. They smiled in your face while plotting behind your back. And when they left, when they tore you open and walked away, you questioned your worth, not their betrayal. That's what betrayal does. It doesn't just hurt, it undoes. It makes you doubt yourself, doubt your choices, doubt your ability to ever trust again. And that's the real damage. That's the scar beneath the scar. Because once someone you love becomes your enemy, love itself becomes a threat. And the betrayal? It rewrites your entire story. But hear this, their betrayal was never about you. It was about their cowardice, their weakness, their inability to hold something real without shattering it. They didn't betray you because you were unworthy. They betrayed you because they were unworthy of you. The manipulator, the puppeteer, the one who smiled and said all the right things while pulling your string. You didn't see it at first. You thought it was love. You thought it was care. But over time, your world started shrinking. You lost yourself in their game. You second-guessed everything you thought and felt. You walked on eggshells, tried to read their ever-changing moods, tried to earn their affection like it was some prize to be won. They twisted your mind, gaslit your truth, made you apologize for bleeding. They taught you to doubt your reality, to silence your instincts, to serve their comfort while abandoning your own. And when you broke, they played the victim, said you were too much, too dramatic, too unstable. But they were the chaos. They were the poison. They don't love, they consume. And you, bright, open-hearted you, were their feast. But listen carefully now. You're not crazy. You're not wrong. You're not the villain in your own story. You were targeted because you shine, and they couldn't handle it, so they tried to dim you. But your light, your truth, was never theirs to control. The ghost. Some hurt comes loud, some comes in absence. They promised to stay, and then they vanished, without explanation, without closure. They left a space in your soul shaped exactly like them. You searched for answers that never came, blamed yourself for a silence you didn't cause. Maybe they were a parent who abandoned their role, maybe a lover who walked away, maybe a friend who stopped answering your calls. And the silence, it screamed louder than any goodbye. That kind of hurt seeps in slowly. It whispers, "You're not worth staying for." It tells you that people leave when they see the real you, that presence is conditional, that love has an expiration date. But no, their absence wasn't a reflection of your value. It was a mirror of their emptiness. People who ghost, who disappear without reason, aren't powerful. They're terrified. Terrified of confrontation, of accountability, of facing what they've done. They run, not because you are unlovable, but because they're incapable of love that costs them anything. Let them go. Let their silence echo, but do not let it define you. The mocker, the bully, the critic, the one who laughed at your dreams, mocked your pain, and found joy in your struggle. Maybe it was a classmate, a coworker, a sibling, a parent, someone who should have lifted you but chose to tear you down. They made you feel small, powerless, ridiculous. They laughed when you failed, smirked when you cried, turned your vulnerability into ammunition, and somewhere along the way, you started laughing too, at yourself, at your dreams, at your worth. That's what mockery does. It doesn't just insult you, it infiltrates you. It makes you your own executioner. But let's get one thing straight. People who mock others are not strong. They are fragile, because it takes no strength to destroy, but it takes every ounce of courage to create, to believe, to rise. And you, my friend, are rising. So let them laugh, let them sneer, let them choke on their bitterness while you turn every insult into fuel. They called you weak, but here you are. They called you foolish, but here you stand. They tried to humiliate you, but now your very survival is a rebellion. And here's what all of them, every villain, every liar, every ghost, didn't understand. You don't break like they do. You don't shatter and stay shattered. You rebuild, you adapt, you rise through the ashes while they suffocate in the dust of their own deceit. They came for your heart and found a warrior. They came for your soul and found steel. They tried to bury you, but you were never the body. You were always the seed. And now you're growing into something they can never touch, never own, never break again. Let them watch. Let them remember the role they played in creating what you've become. Because you are becoming untouchable. There comes a night that isn't marked by time, but by the weight in your chest. A night not found on any calendar. Not remembered by anyone else, but etched into your soul like a brand. That night, that was the night everything died. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it didn't explode. It unraveled, quietly, slowly, like a candle running out of wick, like breath running out of lungs, like you running out of reasons. The worst kind of death is the one where your body keeps moving, but your soul stops. You were tired, but not in the way rest could fix. You were exhausted from carrying everything, from being everything. from pretending you were okay when you were hanging on by threads thinner than spider silk. You'd cried so much you had no tears left. You'd screamed so much, inwardly, that your thoughts were hoarse. And when that night came, you didn't break. You folded into yourself like a dying star, collapsing under your own gravity. They didn't see it. How could they? They never saw the fight, only the aftermath. And by then, your voice was gone. Your light was dim. Your hope buried beneath layers of quiet resignation. You didn't want revenge. You didn't want answers. You didn't even want healing. You wanted silence, the kind that comes with finality. You wanted the ache to stop screaming. You wanted the voices in your head to stop whispering that this world would spin just fine without you. You looked in the mirror and saw a stranger, eyes dimmer, posture lower, spirit absent. You were done hoping, done believing, done caring. And in that moment, you made a choice. No, not to end, but to end who you were. Because here's the truth no one dares to speak. You either die in the dark, or you become it. And on that night, you became it. Something inside you snapped, not in weakness, but in fury, in defiance, in final desperate rebellion. You realized no one was coming to save you. No hands were reaching, no voices were calling. And so you did the unthinkable. You saved yourself. You stood up, not because you had the strength, but because you had no other option. You wiped your face, not because the tears were gone, but because you were done letting them win. You stopped begging life to be kinder and started becoming something life couldn't hurt anymore. Your heart, it turned to steel that night, not cold, unbreakable. You didn't forget who hurt you. You didn't erase the pain. You didn't deny the scars. No, you buried them deep. You made a mausoleum of your memory, and in the silence of that inner graveyard, something monstrous bloomed. Not evil, not bitter, just powerful, unapologetic, ruthless in its will to never be broken again. That was the turning, the rebirth, not pretty, not poetic, but necessary. You didn't choose vengeance. You didn't choose hatred. You chose distance. You chose fire. You chose to forge yourself into something harder than the world that tried to shatter you. And the old you, the soft one, the hopeful one, the one who believed in promises and people and fairy tales, they died that night. You buried them with a whisper, rest now. I've got it from here, and the new you. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped waiting for closure. You stopped looking back. Because the night everything died was the night you finally started living, not as a version of who you were, but as the weapon the pain created. This is the cliff. This is the edge. This is the silence before the roar, and they'll never see it coming. You walked into the dark, and instead of getting lost, you became the thing that hunts inside it, untouchable. You opened your eyes, and for the first time, you didn't cry. There was no applause, no music swelling, no angels singing in the distance. Just breathe, just the sound of your own lungs defying the weight that tried to crush them. You didn't rise like a phoenix, not yet, but something inside you shifted, a flicker, a tremor, a single spark, the first flame. You didn't even recognize it at first. It was small, fragile, hidden behind the ruins of who you used to be. But it was there. It came not from hope, but from defiance, from the ancient part of you that still remembered how to fight. The part that said, no, not like this, not again, not ever. They wanted you quiet. You decided to speak. They wanted you broken. You chose to build. They wanted you weak. You decided to become dangerous, not to others, not in cruelty, but in truth, in power, in finally understanding who you are when no one is left to hold you. The world had stripped everything from you, innocence, trust, belief, and now you stood raw and unrecognizable, staring at your own reflection and thinking, maybe this is where I begin. You didn't need permission. You didn't wait for understanding. You simply moved. The steps were small at first, just getting out of bed without hating yourself, just making it through the day without sinking back into the grave you almost laid in, just breathing with intent instead of survival. And every time you did, every small rebellion against the pain. It added fuel to the fire. You lit that match by daring to believe that maybe, just maybe, they were wrong about you. They told you you'd never make it, that you were too soft, too unstable, too much. But now, those words weren't chains. They were kindling, and the more they echoed, the more they burned. This wasn't about revenge. This wasn't about proving them wrong. This was about proving yourself right. Because even in your darkest hour, something in you chose to live. Something in you refused to die quietly. And now that something is rising. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It's not a movie scene with a perfect score. It's a slow, brutal resurrection. You eat the pain. You drink the silence. You wear the scars like war paint. You start showing up, not to please, but to conquer. You stop apologizing for the way you walk, the way you speak, the way you carry the weight you never asked for. You stop asking for validation from the people who built their comfort on your destruction. You stop whispering, and you start commanding. They don't recognize you any good. They weren't supposed to, because the you they knew, the compliant version, the desperate one, the always smiling, always bleeding version, that person died in the fire. What's left is forged. There's nothing more dangerous than someone who's lost everything and kept going. Nothing more unstoppable than a soul who's been burned to ash and still says, I'm not done. You became the storm, not in fury, but in clarity, not to destroy, but to reclaim. Every step forward now is a promise. I will never go back. Not to begging, not to shrinking, not to doubting my own voice just to make others comfortable. They tried to drown you, but you learned how to breathe underwater. They tried to chain you, but you broke yourself on the inside first, so no chain could hold you again. They tried to erase you, but now you write your name in fire. This is where it starts. Not with a roar, but with a flicker. Not with an army, but with you, bloody-knuckled, half-healed, eyes still burning. You don't need a savior. You became your own. And if they thought the broken version of you was hard to deal with, they're about to meet the version forged in silence, sharpened by pain, and lit by the first flame of defiance. You're not healed. You're awakening. And soon, they'll understand. They didn't just hurt you. They rebuilt you. And you were never meant to stay small. You stare at the mirror, not the one on your wall, the one inside, the one that doesn't reflect skin or bone, but truth, the one that shows you what the world can't, the one that asks the questions no one else dares to whisper. Who are you now? Are you broken, or are you becoming? This is the hardest war, the one that doesn't leave bruises on your skin, but carves trenches in your spirit. The battle between who you were, who they told you to be, and who you're rising into. You feel it every time you breathe, every time your reflection doesn't match the sound of your own heartbeat. You look at your scars, physical or invisible, and for the first time, you really see them.